I feel like our engagement drops with my involvement.
Definitely not. That is not true.
Like also, our internal engagement.
I think we are live. I think that is the perfect thing for people to see.
Perfect.
Hi, sorry, I'm still here.
Still back again. Hasn't learned her lesson somehow.
I like these guys, and it's easier for me to be snarky if I have a live mic versus in the comments.
I love it.
Sure, that's fair. It is easier than typing.
Oh.
By the time I type it and the chat is delayed, y'all were missing all my kids. I felt it was a place of frustration.
Yes,
understandable.
So
hey,
how are you,
everybody.
gentlemen? Yeah,
very, very well.
I'm good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I am excited. What are we drinking? I am drinking a terrible combination. I am not a red wine fan, but my father-in-law left this here, and he is a red wine fan. But I'm pretty sure it was old. We thought it was recycling. So it was in it was a bottle that when I went to go recycle it with a pile of other recycling, it had about like a half a glass, maybe almost a glass. These are big, left in it. And then I poured it in there and I was like, whatever, wine all tastes bad. And this one tasted. So then I took some really janky, store-bought, terrible sangria and I poured some of that inside. So functionally, this is the same as, one of those spitballs. At this point, but I'm powering through it. I don't believe in waste. Save the planet. And this is me contributing in my own way.
Sure. Save the planet. Drink more jungle juice. I get you. That's
fun.
Jungle juice at least has intention behind it.
That's true. It does have at least a little bit of intention.
If I put strawberry Malibu in this, then that would be jungle juice at that point.
Yeah, I feel like you have to add some white liquor,
Sprite.
like some gin and some Sprite or something.
Yeah.
Something
I have Canada Dry. I could do it. Don't test me.
Exactly.
But
waste not want not.
Maybe that for the next time we have you on, Caroline. Yeah, we'll all drink some random intentional. Ironic or unironic drinks, and throughout the show, we'll just see what happens that way.
Fabulous. We'll see if
that looks like a goblet. That's not a small cup.
No, I said, this is the small one too. These are Rachel Zoe from Home Goods. They're iridescent. You can't really see it. They're kind of rainbowy. It makes them slightly bougie. So, but then they still only cost $7 for 4. So it's right in that level of what I'm looking for. It's fabulous.
Perfect. I'm drinking Santori's Toki whiskey, which is always very nice, from a glass that I found in a free box here in Chicago.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Free glasses from I've walked into liquor stores and been like, those are cool. And they were like, I was like, if I buy that, can you give me those glasses? And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. It's the best.
Yeah, I have to really work on not just anytime I see free stuff taking all of it. I am very much not like a hoarder sort of thing, but I'm like, oh, it's free silverware. Oh, it's these could be great plates, and I have to be good on
comment. I don't know how to do this. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes. I've tried numerous seltzers, and that includes. So I haven't tried the Bud Light ones. I've heard they're good, but frankly, they all pretty much taste the same. You kind of just need to find the variant that matters for you versus the brand, and the variant and the flavor. So variant means, do we want a traditional seltzer? Do we want, which is just like seltzer water with a hint of flavor? If you want something sweeter, the lemonades and the iced teas are the same number of calories and possibly carbs if you give a shit, but are much, much sweeter, much more in line with a lemonade and an iced tea respectively, though they are carbonated still. So it's still it's a lemonade seltzer. It's weird. And then those are the 3 macro categories that I've seen so far. I have not tried anything outside of that. I like the teas a lot, and they're very good mixers. As far as brand, I don't have a preference on brand.
BJ turned me on to the Bud Light ones. Those are the only ones I've ever had. I got the
I've
Bud Light.
Good.
Yeah, they were the out of office special. The watermelon was way too sweet for me, but the lime, the mango, and the strawberry were very tasty.
If any of the regular ones are too sweet for you, do not try the lemonades unless you understand what you're getting with lemonade, right? It's aggressive, so they are aggressive. So Yeah. Maybe better as mixers then.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd really want something like super sweet that way. That's not my style. Brad, what about you?
Yeah.
No, I'm not generally into the super sweet stuff. As far as seltzers, I think I've only ever had White Claw.
Yeah. White Claw was too sweet for me.
I haven't had a big selection of them.
Man, give me like a shot. I literally only drink like Malibu. I am a 20-year-old college girl on like Thursday night in any given city, but that's me drinking all the time. And so it's like Malibu pineapple was my go-to for like years. Like I am insane. And I've toned it back, but like rum, just a straight rum Diet Coke is still a little much for me. Like I can do it. It depends on the mood. But I don't know, like I would prefer it to just taste like ice cream. That would be great. Thanks.
Sure. I'm sort of on the opposite spectrum, I think, in a lot of ways. Yeah. My preference is like harshly smoky scotch, like the opposite end of the sweetness.
Do you like mezcal too, then?
No, I mean,
I love mezcal. Yeah, I think mezcal.
I've had a couple of good mezcals. Yeah,
mezcal is weird.
I haven't had a ton of them.
I was unprepared. There are certain things I don't expect liquid to taste like, and mezcal literally tastes like smoke, and it's like cool. Because I can do tequila pretty well, so like mezcal, that's easy as a variant, but it's weird. Similarly with beer, like my husband gave me like a cherry wheat one time, and I was like, tastes like bread. And why does this taste like bread? I don't understand. But 5-year-old tastes, so that's where.
How do you feel about, Caroline? Have you ever had an old fashioned, like a Wisconsin old fashioned before?
I think I've had an old fashioned like once ever, and it was not in Wisconsin. So I'm gonna assume that since I didn't specify a Wisconsin style, so
Wisconsin style old fashioned is very, very unique. So Wisconsin old fashions are usually made with bourbon, but the Wisconsin old fashioned is made with brandy, so it's very sweet.
Oh, okay. But sweet to you, like the fact that you were like the watermelon one is way too sweet. I'm like, we're not. Our taste buds do not align.
No, they do not align. Me, again, it's not just on there's a spectrum this way. I'm on the anise flavor. I want the Negronis. I want the strange umami sort of stuff.
Okay, umami I can get into, but not in liquid.
Umami and liquid.
Like ramen. I love like a good tonkatsu ramen, but like I can only stand it for so long before it's like too much for me.
Let me tell you a little story about one of my favorite drinks I've ever had in my life. My wife and I went to Hong Kong back in 2019, and we went to a little restaurant called not even a restaurant, it's a bar called The Old Man, and The Old Man is all themed around Hemingway novels. And the bar is set up like a proscenium stage, right? Thank you very, very much, Beach. Oh my God,
I agree. I concur.
This boy's after my heart. So I got The Sun Also Rises, which is one of my favorite sort of drinks, and it was a white Bloody Mary, essentially, where they had infused oyster shells and seawater, and it was amazing. Now, the interesting thing about it is it tastes very bitter, very briny. But there was I can't remember, it was like olive leaf or something that they had essentially like freeze dried, and you took a bite of the olive leaf, which would neutralize your palate. And then you'd be able to start sipping it again. So for someone like me who wants something brinier, who wants something salty, some umami that way, well, too much of that, like you essentially just like an IPA or anything else like that, you just goes away. So you take this little bite of this little plant, and it would just all of it would go away, and you would start, and it was like the very first time you would sip the drink.
Oh wow, like a palate cleanser. That's great.
It was amazing.
You're one of those people that if someone was like, "This drink has egg whites in it," you'd be like, "Fuck yeah."
Yeah, into it. Oh no, I'm super into like. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff like even sweet stuff. Like there's a great bar here in Chicago called Lost Lake, which is all like tiki stuff, and it's like they've got like bananas and all the other stuff. But if I'm at Lost Lake and I'm into a sweet sort of experience that way, I'm all the way in. I'm all the way in. So
I've been leaning into Moscow Mules lately. I don't know what it is. They feel like the bartender isn't judging me as bad, but that it's like It also tastes good, so it's like a win-win. Those and hot toddies in the winter. I don't know. They're just amazing.
Very nice.
What do you got, Brad? What are you drinking?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Brad, you don't go out to drink very often, do you?
Not really. My basement is probably the third or fourth best stocked bar in town, and I live in a major city.
I think of you when I went to. Have you been to Amsterdam?
At least.
Have you been to Amsterdam?
I have not yet.
It feels very well aligned with your interests, but
It really does. I need to get there.
There's one bar. So we have a friend who I might have mentioned this at one point. When Trump got elected, he got really drunk that night. He messaged a friend who lived in Amsterdam, was like, who works at booking.com, and was like, hey, are they hiring? Got hired, and then yeeted himself and was just YOLO'd it and left. And so we met up with him. He showed us some really cool places in Amsterdam when we went to visit. And one of them was a place that was stocked bottom to top, like every possible crevice with whiskey. Like it was this small kind of hole in the wall. Getting up to the bathroom was this like horrific, these terrifying stairs. Like you barely made it. They were using every square. It was like New York level space efficiency. Like it was good. And whiskey, scotch and whiskey everywhere. I feel like y'all would very, very much appreciate that.
Sounds like
place.
A very good time.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was really cool. We saw some really cool stuff.
Brad, what's like the sweetest drink that you think you could say you enjoy?
The sweetest.
Like, are you like a hot chocolate fan? If I give you a hot chocolate,
any type of drink.
Yeah, I'm just saying any type of drink that way.
Yeah, I would go for a hot chocolate. I mean, Dr. Pepper is probably on the sweeter.
There you go. There you go.
I would tolerate, but yeah, anything sort of chocolate. I'll go for like a mudslide now and then if we're talking alcohol. That's
very nice.
The frozen drinks drive me crazy. I can't do it.
No.
Really? Especially in Texas, you're not into the frozen drinks now? Excuse me, did I dox you? Excuse me.
No.
Texas is big. It's fine. No
pretty open about it. No, like, I don't know what it is. They're just, I don't know. They're just too much. They always are. They seem like, unless I'm on the beach, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But even then, it's like, I don't want I just want like this, you know what I mean? Like, they'll wipe up a thing and put it in like two of these like plastic things. And I'm just like, cool. And then I just take that. And no fanfare. Like, can we chill out? There was a place in New York that my friends would want to go to all the time where they would have those huge big things. And we lived in New York. These were New Yorkers. And they went to this place and it was in Times Square and I hated it. And it's called Dallas Barbecue. I'd never heard of it. I hate this place. And they would do like the big frozen drink with a beer in it. And it's just like, nice. This is the worst. Like, nightmare.
Did they like it ironically? Was it like sort of?
No, they liked it. And the barbecue wasn't good. And they didn't have good sides. Like, they didn't have mac and cheese. Like, they didn't have good sides. How do you have a barbecue place with bad sides? Explain that to me.
And also, when your barbecue place is in Times Square.
Right.
You know what? I believe that Guy Fieri's restaurant has good food. Like, good for what it is, but I trust that over the place that we ended up going to. And they always wanted to go there. And it drove me insane because it was also $1 million to eat there because it was in Times Square. It was specifically located in what I refer to as the Nexus to Hell, which is 42nd Street between Broadway and 8th. It's the worst.
Okay. Yeah.
I hate it. It's where all the movie theaters are and like, you know, the huge McDonald's and it's a nightmare. So yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe that's what ruined frozen drinks for me. I have to be in a very specific place and mood. Okay. As a rule.
I mean, Brad, I would imagine you as a Canadian, probably not a lot of frozen drinks in Canada, right?
I mean, we have a summer.
Yeah, you do.
It lasts a few days. It's fine.
I actually don't know what the weather is like in Canada, so that's interesting.
I mean, Kellen, where are you? I mean, we have the same weather.
It's the same weather. It's the same weather as the Midwest.
It's not any different. It's the same weather.
Yeah. It gets colder and it gets snowier where Brad is. It gets darker where Brad is. I think that's the main difference is the summers are brighter and the winters are darker.
Okay, like in terms of just how much sunlight you get.
Level of heat generally on average. It's okay. Yeah, we have the summertime.
BJ made a comment about Guy's restaurants. And here's the thing. When you say Guy being Guy, Guy is actually a super nice guy. Guy is like, he does a lot of really good stuff and he stays out of bullshit. So like, he's actually like really legit nice. He just has terrible fashion in hair.
Yeah,
and
everything
that's fine.
I've learned about him seems to indicate that he's a great dude.
He's a really great dude. So it's just, you know what you're getting if you go to Flavortown. Like, and if you don't, that's on you. I feel like
if you're into it, cool. If you're not, it's kind of your fault because it wasn't a secret.
His marketing is very clear.
The style of food that he is cooking is Guy Fieri, right? Like, and if you're going there for a different experience, then that's you. That's 100% on you.
Yeah. So he tried to bring flame shirts back and didn't quite get there, but he's still fighting that fight.
They could come back again. Fashion is cyclical, it'll just take time.
I think all of our kids will wear flame shirts unironically.
Oh God, you're probably right. The flame shirt kid, there's a key difference to be noted between flame shirt kid and Hawaiian shirt kid. Hawaiian shirt kid, there's something it's semi-acceptable about it. It's got a note of irony. It's got something, but flame shirt kid is always the kid that doesn't bathe enough and like is taking Japanese because he wants to like full on actual weeb, not haha, I watch anime, I'm a weeb, like actual like probably fetishizes Asian women, like, and it's just and there's
very
just
specific.
Because I knew that guy. I knew several of those guys.
This is a person in the past.
Yeah, I was going to
say.
Two
people in particular. Two people in particular. Okay. And deeply concerning. Hopefully that type of person would not exist in the future, but flame shirts, not on my watch, is all I'll say to that. If I find it, it's going in the trash. I'm not buying them for you. You would have to really demonstrate some high levels of empathy and just like cultural awareness before I would let you wear a flame shirt, because I just need to know you're wielding it responsibly. Yeah, that's kind of.
I feel the same way. My children, I want to support them with whatever they want to do. I have one rule, which is they can't be magicians. That's the one thing I can't support.
Why?
Because I feel like if they say to me, I want to be a professional magician, that's a slippery slope to a lot of very strange places that I as a performer am struggling to be like, look, you want to be an actor, you want to be an entertainer, all those things. I love it. But the people who are professional magicians, the people who are like, no, I'm not a comedian. I'm not an entertainer. I'm a magician, Dad. I would struggle with that so much.
What if they were just casually interested in
magic? Totally understand. That's totally fine. Love it. Casual interested in magic. That's great. But again, the Venn diagram of flame shirt and casual interest in magic, that person right there in the middle, I grew up with a couple of those, and those people are very, very strange. Those people are anti-vaxxers. Those people are very, very weird people. So
that is such a weird. I wouldn't have guessed that would be the direction that they would go. That's interesting.
Oh yes. Because again, when you are someone who is so bought in on the magic act, you have to be anti-authority for everything, because you live outside the bounds of regular science and belief that way. So,
is it just that they watch too much Penn and Teller's bullshit? Like, is it just that?
It's 100% that. It's 100%. The person I'm thinking of is 100% that person.
Because he has this whole bit about how he has like the Constitution written on a metal plate when he goes to the airport, so that he has to give away his rights when he goes through the machine because TSA. And it's like, you're obnoxious, it sounds like it's just libertarianism being.
Oh yes. I grew up in rural Oregon. It's very libertarian. It's very libertarian. Yes.
That's unfortunate. I don't like it. This makes me think of a question.
Oh, Caroline has a question for us, Brad. This is wonderful.
I do.
Is that what we do here?
I have one. This is one my husband likes to ask. And so what is, I guess it's tricky because usually it's a question you ask to women, but what do you think, I guess, would be the least impressive skill that someone can be a master of, and still get laid? Like, so the question to women is usually, what's the least impressive thing that someone can do super well? Like, is it they're the Smash Brothers champion and is it they're really good at magic? Is it, I knew someone once who, a girl, it's via people I knew, but basically this girl slept with a guy who was like the national Yu-Gi-Oh champion.
I remember that.
And then I made a TikTok about it.
Yeah.
And then they called her a blue eyes white dragon for like a year because of that, which is harsh, but so funny. So what is it to you, like, the least impressive thing that someone could do that you think would still be impressive enough to pull men or women? I feel like the standard is going to be different for men than women, obviously. So usually this is asked to women, but I'm just I'm very curious. I feel like that's a good type of question.
The least impressive. Okay.
Yeah. So like, what's the least impressive thing that you think someone could get away with and still, like, if they were really, really like the guy, they'd still pull?
I mean, a Yu-Gi-Oh championship is definitely up there.
But why are we knocking that down? I think a national Yu-Gi-Oh, like, my partner,
least socially valuable maybe might be the thing, where it's not like least impressive by standard social norms, like an average.
I don't even know what those would be. That's gonna be tricky.
I mean, a part of me wants to be like, I don't know, somebody has their GED. Plenty of people who have GEDs can still get laid, right? Like, that's what I go in terms of
hobbies. We're talking
hobbies. Okay.
We're talking like, oh, I am a really good Warhammer painter. Like, I can fucking pull a magic trick out of a hat, because I have to say that for that. But you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I can chug a beer faster than any, like, that one, definitely somebody's getting laid off that. You know what I mean? Like, the hot dog champion guy. Like, there are things that are nationally,
Joey Chestnut. Yes.
You have to think about, there are things that are nationally recognized. They're going to get you more points. Anything that has press associated of the social collateral, like collateral is not the word, the social value of said thing. The more niche it is, or the more traditionally, I guess, nerd it is, possibly the less interesting it is, and possibly the less valuable it is in that respect. But like, if you went to a party and you saw a guy, what's like doing something cool, what would the potentially, like, what do you think someone could get away with and possibly be like the least interesting thing?
I know my friend Amy is a national competitor in the eating scene. She eats watermelon and chicken wings, and she could say I have 2 national championships in eating watermelon to any guy, and if she dropped that, she knew she was getting laid that night. I know
BJ's coming for us. Harsh.
Wow. Wow. BJ.
So now, okay, how many followers on this?
Excuse me, I won an award
before it counts.
Is that it?
I feel like you're totally.
We have an award-winning guest.
Exactly. This is
an unrelated
very
field.
Professional stream.
So
let's think about that. That is interesting. Brad, do you have anything?
Harry, are you implying that this is not alcohol? Because I'll tell you, while it is low-quality alcohol, which could be compared to grape juice, it is in fact. Oh, they're fighting about juice, and I don't know why.
This is to give you a hint, Carolyn. Carrie has a long-standing, wonderful bit with me, where every time I'm drinking, she thinks that it's apple juice, and she always says that it's apple juice.
Oh, and for me, it's grape juice. No, I have the bottle. It's very terrible. Like,
you could have just filled that with grape juice. That doesn't prove anything.
That's a lot of work.
It could be water with purple coloring. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
That's even more work. Who has purple coloring? Are you kidding? What?
What's the skill?
I'll have we do not drink juice.
Ridiculous
There's too much
yo-yo
diabetes.
tricks. Ridiculous yo-yo tricks.
Yeah.
Would get someone laid.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Tricks, yeah.
Like, a guy pulls out a yo-yo at a party and just starts doing crazy stuff.
Super nerdy, completely pointless, and
do you think that if a
probably
guy
get
like,
laid in the right manner.
do you think if, like, here's the question, and I think it depends on the guy, but I think a guy could probably, if like a K-pop song came on if a guy's at a party and just randomly burst into dance and like knew the choreography and like did it slick, but it was the dance. So it's not just, oh yeah, you're a cool dancer, like the K-pop dance.
The dance. Yes.
So it's very aligned. I think you could probably, Well,
Carolyn, what about this though? What if K-pop song comes on? No, the song comes on and the guy with the yo-yo comes out and then does a completely synced dance with the yo-yo to the K-pop song.
Obviously,
that's an orgy waiting to happen.
Yeah. There was a guy at I went to what's called KCON, that's in New York and LA a couple of years back, because it's an easy way to see a bunch of. Sure. It's like the convention where they do big concerts and they split it up in a couple of days, and you can see a whole bunch of artists all at once because they all come, and it can be hard to get. It can be hard to get people, to come and do their own tours if they're not big enough. Yeah, I think it probably is Dr. Pepper. I don't know, with some sort of whiskey in it.
If it's not Dr. Pepper, I'm putting a lot of effort into making it seem like it is.
So you went to KCON.
So I went to KCON, and so they like to make it like a real convention, and it's like, it's not, it's a concert, get over yourself. They want to have like, there's panels and I literally skip all of that. I show up to the concert. I don't care about any of the rest. But there was some sort of contest performance contest. And the person who won, or the group that won, was able to perform in front of, as an opener for the concert. And so whatever they did. And this guy comes up, and you made me think of this because BTS song called Save Me. I absolutely love it. I absolutely adore it. You know it? Do you know that song?
I do.
Okay. I love that song. I love that song so much. And the video is amazing because it's a one-shot video that is just them. It's like the camera circles around and they go in and out of frame.
Real good.
Doing the dance. And this kid up there with a violin and he plays it live and dances the dance while violining this song. And BTS, if you are unfamiliar, for the people in the comments and Brad, BTS is known.
This is just me recreating my TikTok from earlier today, where I'm just
exactly.
Confused. But it's fine, and I'm loving it.
Every time I'm on, I feel like Brad just kind of goes
perfect
the whole time. BTS is known for their incredibly complex choreography now. And at the very least, So Save Me isn't their most complex by far, but it's incredibly taxing physically. So imagine he's doing this full, really involved thing by himself and also doing the violin. Everyone, at first I was like, what is this? And I immediately lost it. I was like, this is amazing. And that was some of the coolest stuff I have ever seen. One of the coolest things. I mean, that kid, the amount of effort that goes into that. To learn the song, learn the dance, do them together, practice it enough to do them both well so you can do it live, like just insanity. Like BTS can't even do more than a couple of their songs in succession without breaks because of how taxing they are. It's interesting. Yeah,
well, that's so impressive specifically about that video. The fact that it's one shot the whole time is really impressive. So
yeah, they know how to perform live, but that video being one shot is really, from a production standpoint, I find amazing. And the song is also like just very emotionally evocative, and that's something that's very important to me in music. And it's really, really good. I highly recommend everyone check that video out and check that song out. And to be fair, I've been into BTS since they debuted. So
no one's going to question you. No one's going to question your card that way.
I think they might. Not everyone knows the pedigree. Okay, so
I think it'll be okay.
I'm still thinking about what's the thing that's going to get someone late. I mean, I go to the things that I am like the fact that I was a professional improviser for many years, and people wanted to have sex with me because I could make shit up on stage. Where I'm like, "What? This does no. I'm not doing art. I'm just pulling shit out of my ass." Like I think about that. I think about
that's comedy, though. It's the comedy. It's the fact that it is. I think the comedy
was it comedy, Karen? Was it comedy? Was it comedy?
I've been to UCB several times, and it's been funny. Like I can't do, as a person who cannot improvise for shit. I am very impressed by those who have that capability. I am
okay.
incredibly bad at it, actually, like famously bad at it. Like if there are parts when I did take dance, when it would be like, oh yeah, they'd be like, you just, freestyle. I'm like, no,
I'm just gonna stand still.
I will not freestyle. I will choose what I'm going to do. And then I will do that every time. Yeah. I cannot freestyle. It causes my system to freeze. I blue screen and I just kind of stand there and then I cry in a corner. I don't know. It's not good. And I did force myself to take improv lessons so that I would get better at that at UCB, actually. But I think it's only mildly improved.
There you go. I don't want to derail this conversation to talk about improv because it's such a terrible art form.
Why do you hate your craft, Kellen? Can we talk about the self-hate that I'm seeing demonstrated here? Because it is concerning.
Very unhealthy.
Self-love.
I don't even know if it's hate, Caroline. I think for me, I got to a certain point where improv, and I say this a lot, improv is a lot like meth, right? The more you involve yourself in it, because it is such a fast reward, the more addicted you kind of get to it. And again, I was doing improv, I was doing sketch, I was performing in all the theaters here in Chicago, having a great time. But at a certain point, it just stopped scratching that itch, and I either needed to completely involve myself in the scene and just commit and be like, no, this is my lifestyle. I'm gonna do this. Or you pull back and you're like, oh, this is a fun tool. It's a fun way to create content. It's a fun way to think about things, but it is not a art form like sketch or stand up or acting or dance or anything else like that. It is just like meth, because when it hits, when you do it so well, boy, it's fantastic. And the audience is like, oh my God, this is amazing. But when it's bad, it is the worst. It is the absolute worst, unredeemable way of wasting people's time, the audience, everyone's time. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's not that I hate it. It's just I feel like I had to sort of distance myself from improv because I know plenty of people. Chicago is an improv city, right? And I know plenty of people who are like, no, man, I'm going to improvise till I die. And I'm like, you are going to die alone.
Soon and alone.
Yeah.
So do you do stand-up then?
I have been known to do stand-up, but I would never consider myself a stand-up comedian because I think it's a very different art form. Like I think stand-up, like I've done stand-up and I've just improvised for 5 minutes, right? I'm just like, I've got a couple ideas. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head. I know how to do that very well. But the people who I admire who are good at stand-up, poets, right? Like they have their craft down. They can improvise between sort of different ideas, but like the punchline, the way they're talking, all of those things is very, very crafted, very intentional. And for me, stand-up, again, Chicago's not a stand-up city at all. I think I was in New York or LA, like stand-up is a place where you can actually really like work that muscle and do a bunch of rooms that way. But like, I admire every stand-up comedian that I know because they can do a lot of stuff. Well, I mean, but you don't need to live in a giant city. I know people who do stand-up here in Chicago who do stand-up in tinier towns, like who just like, hey, there's an open mic on Thursday. I get up there, I make people laugh. That's all they need.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Stand-up is amazing. I love listening to stand-up. I love following different stand-up comedians. It is great. But it's like, to me, in terms of the comedy hierarchy, stand-up's at the top.
Interesting. Yeah.
How do you feel about stand-up?
Oh, I used to watch it. Like, those Comedy Central specials used to be like the epitome. I would absolutely love those. Mm-hmm. They'd come on like Friday night. There'd be like a stack of them. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love them. And it's one of those things where it's something that I would love to be. If I thought I could be good at it, I would love to do it. But I just don't. I don't know what it is. I think that's the reason I gravitate. I'm trying to think about why of all platforms, like I've never been big on any social media. I don't have a Twitter. I have it. Like I have
it exists technically.
It exists.
I have a Twitter. You know what I mean? Like I use it to yell at customer service people when they're not listening to me.
Perfect. That's all I need.
I use it to harass airlines.
That's one of the better uses for Twitter, really.
I use it to harass airlines, no joke. And to keep up with Lil Nas X because he's hilarious. Mm-hmm. And I am on Instagram, technically. Because you know what happened? I didn't make an Instagram. And then I connected my Facebook to Instagram to like someone's photo because it was for a contest and it was a coworker and I said I would. And someone in like Thailand had made an Instagram out of my email. And like I'm gonna kick you out. Yeah. So had like when I connected it, it was like it already existed, and it had a bunch. It was nothing but photos of Tekken characters. Like,
I mean, that's pretty cool, though, right?
And they only followed like other Tekken character accounts, where it's not even like fun. It's just stills. It's just stills, like not even fan art. Stills from the fucking games. Like, y'all, this is boring. Like, and luckily I knew what I was looking at. Like, whatever. I knew what I was looking at because
luckily is the key word. Absolutely the key word, Carolyn.
Every single boyfriend and now my husband, every single man I've ever attached myself to has been obsessed with some sort of game, usually a fighting game. And Tekken was one of them. So I was immediately like, why? And I had to delete all the photos out and like reclaim it out of spite at that point because, get out. But I'm not active on that in any meaningful way. I don't know. But I think I like TikTok because it's like a controlled, it's a very controlled way to make like memes and jokes and you can make like a stand-up type environment where it's just these one-off hits. And it's not like, just because there's less pressure, because you're able to control the full environment of it. But I feel like stand-up is just when I think about how much control goes into it, I think, and how pre-planned it is and how much they rehearse and think about, I never realized it always comes off so effortlessly. And I think knowing that makes me feel like more that I could potentially do it, but I will never do it. Like, it's never been a thing that I'm like desperate to try or anything like that. But I love stand-up, man. It's great. Finding like good comedians and just people who say great stuff. Like, about that, I haven't seen really good ones, and like I feel like they tend to make me feel a little cringy a lot of the time. They had for a while anyway, but we're getting to a point where people are I feel like I'm seeing better clips that make me feel like, okay, no, this is really good and a good topic to talk about and stuff. And I'm seeing better clips lately. I feel like as the world changes, stand-up kind of has to keep pace with that. And I think we went through a period where it was really great in like the early aughts, late 90s, early aughts. And then there's been some weird middle grounds where people weren't sure what to talk about, or like the things people traditionally could talk about, they couldn't for a while. I'm trying to think of what his name is. There's a comedian, is it Bill Burr?
Yeah.
Is like kind of cringy and terrible. Like, I kind of like, I can't watch his stuff. Like, I actually really don't like it. And my dad does. And I'm like, oh, Dad, no. So I have to watch it anytime over there at their house, and I hate it.
Brad, do you know who Bill Burr is?
Yes, I do.
How do you feel about Bill Burr?
I'm mostly ambivalent. I haven't seen a ton of his stuff.
Brad, is there a comedian that you enjoy that you would say that you're a fan of? A stand-up comedian?
Like Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks, great. Fantastic. Dead. There you go.
George Carlin, same problem.
Dead. Very good. Very good.
Can I think of anyone that's
hilarious? I love Bo Burnham.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, he's Inside is a very different thing than his old stuff for sure. But still, I don't know. I thought his stuff was great. But Bill Burr is an example of the first time I saw him, I thought he was funny. Then as I saw him as the world continues to change and turn, I find him less palatable. And now I kind of can't stand him. It's kind of like are you familiar with there's an off-Broadway show called Avenue Q?
Yeah, I'm very familiar.
Sure.
Yeah, so when I first saw Avenue Q,
I
loved Avenue Q. Yes. And then I took friends to see it years later, and I was mortified. And it's just like, it's the same show. I changed. And so I think maybe, so for me, like you
found more things to do on the internet than porn is what you're saying?
Yeah, I was going to say, it was like, no, all right, no, Carol, no, hold on one second, right?
Still for porn,
right? Everybody is racist, right?
Everybody is definitely still racist.
Everyone's still racist.
There's a lot of I'm not saying the whole show is trash, but the racially based jokes didn't get edited out, and
it is a really interesting musical in the sense where it is intentionally, and I'm not trying to defend Avenue Q, but I think it is intentionally leaning into a lot of those tropes, because when it came out, there was at least a time where I was like, great, this is a cartoon, right? We are flipping this sort of Sesame Street on its head. So we're going to make these terrible Asian American sort of stereotypes. We're going to be fucking Gary Coleman is a punchline all the sort of time. Like, it is leaning into this. All of the, sort of will they, won't they gay stereotypes in Avenue Q. It's all there. It's all supposed to be there. But I can totally agree with you. Like, I was listening to the soundtrack the other day, and I know Avenue Q so well, and I'm like singing it to my son, and I'm like, oh, right. I don't know if I
singing it to your son.
Wait, this got awkward suddenly.
This is like, you know what it makes me think of? I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Shane Dawson as a creator or like this. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think of him like
very problematic.
So think about like the stuff he used to do that used to be okay, and it's cringy AF now, and it's not, and it was never okay. And really his reaction, I'm not going to get into the whole thing with him, but like at the time it was pretty well received by white people, but and by younger people who weren't concerned about like the Millie show or whatever. I never knew who he was until a couple years ago. So you know what I mean? Like it's the sort of thing, it aged terribly. And I'm kind of shocked that Avenue Q was never, I guess, I feel like there would be some kind of reckoning for some of the stuff in there, but maybe people were just because you lean into it doesn't, because that was the original premise of what Shane was doing, right? Mm-hmm. He was leaning into, I'm going to lean into African American stereotypes or black stereotypes. I'm going to lean into this idea of like treating this child horribly, because of how outrageous it is. And that outrageous level, that outrage humor is no longer tolerated when, in a lot of circles, because the people who are the butt of that are finally being able to speak out. And I feel like that's where Avenue Q falls. So it's the same thing for me with stand-up. Like some stand-up I can watch and feel good, but I feel like stand-up, and it also, to me, affected the whole genre for a while in the sense that people just weren't sure what they could do. So there was safety that potentially came at the cost of laughs or whatever you want to call it, humor level. And then there was kind of off-putting, dangerous type stuff. And but I love I like Bo Burnham's early stuff where he's just leaning into the new kind of whatever you want to call it, new normal around social, like our social approach to these types of things. Like I think like Welcome to the Internet is like stuck in my head all the time.
Sure.
It's a fantastic song and it makes a great point while still being really funny. So I think he's found a really good balance. And I know he's not for everybody, but generally, I really, really like, he's like still cynical and depressed and angry, but he's still really funny. So, and he knows how to play off his cis straight white maleness in a way that is funny and not at the expense of other people. So that I think is really cool. But I've also seen like some people, I'm obsessed with Vanderpump Rules. That's a thing. That's your fun fact of the day for Caroline. And there's a woman who's from the most recent season who is a stand-up comedian. And I thought she was really funny doing some of the stuff that she did. I think I got scared off from it for a while because I was worried that it wouldn't be funny. You know what I mean? Like that feeling when you want to go see someone do stand-up and then it's bad and you're like, I think I was avoiding that. So if you have recommendations, I'm very open.
I can easily make some recommendations, but I think to comment on what you're sort of saying about like Avenue Q as well as stand-up comedy, like I think musicals specifically are sort of exist in this world of, and I say this as a musical theater fan, like there are plenty of musicals out there that should never be done anymore because they're so inappropriate, right? Like the fact that people still do South Pacific, the fact that people still do Company, there's still plenty of musicals out there that are like subject matter
Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. There's just some stuff where it's like, let's just not get into this, right? But I feel like musicals are in this weird, it's kind of like opera, where we as the consumer, because we're looking at a form of art that isn't real, right? We don't sing. That's not what we do. So it sort of exists in this realm of a cartoon that kind of is live action and that we're able to sort of see through like the problematic parts of it. Trust me, there's a lot of musicals out there that are definitely not being done because they're extremely problematic in terms of blackface, other sort of minstrel stuff. There's plenty of really, really bad stuff out there. But I feel like musicals, for some reason, we sort of disconnect. There's some cognitive dissonance in terms of when you're watching a musical, especially with puppets, where the bodiness or the racism, yeah, exactly, all that stuff just kind of goes out the window. And I feel like stand-up's kind of almost in the same sort of way, where it's like there certainly are stand-ups. Bill Hicks, great stand-up comedian, definitely says some things that at the time were edgy, and now seem sort of pedantic and kind of like, come on, man, like get with the times, right? There are plenty of stand-up comedians who are like that, and we have to kind of almost look at it almost like art history to say, well,
I get that.
You have to listen to, you have to almost look at it like music. You can't be like, well, this is lame. It's like, well, guess what? The Velvet Underground made this album to sound like this because it was 1962. Like, this album exists for this, not for you today.
I think my problem is more that, as I get what you're saying, definitely. I think, and I feel the same way too about like, well, it should be acknowledged, like when people fuck up on Twitter. Oh, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like where it's like, they were literally 15, y'all. Like I'm hashtag blessed that Twitter came out when I was an adult, like, and I didn't care. You know, the best thing I'd ever done is not being on Twitter. But you know, acknowledgement comes into that. There's a lot more there, but I get that. What happened is that I liked a lot, and then I kept watching it, and I shifted, and things didn't catch up with where my mind shift was. And so things suddenly weren't funny to me, or just felt stale. Not that it was the same thing, but that as they evolved, I think they were struggling a little bit to try and figure out what to do. And for me, it didn't land. And suddenly it felt, and then when I would go back to watch the other stuff, I was deeply uncomfortable. So it was like, you know, and suddenly, and it didn't, nothing felt like it could really nail that, like, I'm losing my mind. This is so funny. And Bo Burnham was probably the first one, just because I wasn't looking for it, and he's everywhere. It's the first thing that was kind of put back in my radar. So it's opened me up a bit more. And I've seen more, you know, like clips on TikTok and stuff like that from comedians who are great. So I'm hoping that I can kind of get back into it that way.
You know, there's also something about a global pandemic that kind of prevents people from doing stand-up comedy live. That probably is the content might seem a little stale for that specific reason that way. So
I haven't been watching it. This happened years ago, honestly, like 2015 or something. Yeah. It's when I started being like, I was watching specials with my dad or something. I was like, this is not funny. Like, not that it was problematic. It was new stuff, but it just wasn't funny to me.
Sure.
I don't know.
I want to take this idea. I like this little thread that we're talking about coming back to something, like coming back to like, oh, here was this thing that I love so much. And then I came back to it years later. And I'm like, I don't know why I like this or not. And I want to shift it to another form of entertainment and art that I think the three of us share. Caroline, you have a gun blade on your wall.
I do.
You have a gun blade on your wall.
I have also two keyblades.
Keyblades on the wall. Yes. Those are references to video games for those people who are not aware of that. Sure. Brad, I want to is there a video game that you've ever played that when you played it the first time, you're like, this is transcendent, this is art, I can't believe it, this is amazing. And then you played it again, I am so embarrassed that I ever liked this, or I don't know what I was thinking. Have you ever had that experience before?
Maybe Max Payne, like the original Max Payne.
Yes.
Yeah.
When it came out, like first game with like real slow-mo. Bullet time craziness. So, like, the noir, like comic book.
What's cringy about it now, though?
Just like all of the dialogue is just so
hard-boiled,
It doesn't make any sense. It's like rough voiceover for just no reason. It's super, super cringy going back.
Silent Hill 2 has terrible voice acting. Silent Hill 2 is like famously bad for that.
But what about the whole game, though? Not just the voice acting, right? I mean, I'm very, very curious about that for all of us in terms of like, I think about like games that I played the very first time where I'm like, this is, I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life. This game is good. This is incredible. And then you come back and you're like, I'm an absolute idiot. Why did I think that this was ever good? Caroline, do you
Easy
have
answer. No, I love them all still.
For you, you're like, nope, I played the game once. It was perfect. I played the game 10 years later. It's still perfect.
It's not that it was perfect. It's the things that I liked about it didn't go away. And if I had barriers, I was able to get past them. Final Fantasy VIII is actually a great example with the Gunblade. Because
I was gonna say.
I had so Final Fantasy VII was the first one I played. And the first one you play is pretty much always the one you think is the best, which is why if you don't fight me if you think it's 6, that's fine. That's valid point. I just didn't play it first, and it was really hard for me to go back in graphics and stuff.
Kellen just about lost it.
I'm sorry. Look, I respect that. It's just I acknowledge that the story is way better in 6. Like 7 story is like guy wants to take over the world. Yeah. Like, okay, whatever. And everything else, like corporations are bad. Save the planet. Like, it's not that deep. And 6 has this amazing cast of characters, and you can like whatever, but it just the nostalgia aspect is not if you didn't there for me.
If you didn't play it, absolutely. And if you're not into sprites, that I totally understand that. If they remastered 6, it would be amazing, but they're never going to do that. So
I only played Chrono Trigger like 2-3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a good one.
I really enjoyed it. But it's just not the same as when I was in 7th grade and like I'm crying because Sarah's got killed. Like it's just not. And you know what I mean? Like it's just the involvement, the music, it's nostalgia entirely. But then like what happens is I know how I have to re-engage with these. I have to wait a certain amount of time. I can't just, and I always go back in with a different objective. So like I want to experience the game in a slightly new way, if at all possible. So like the last time I played Final Fantasy VII, I got all achievements. So like that's not a thing, which includes on like PlayStation or whatever. And that's actually pretty difficult. So like, well, it depends. There are some things that you need to get, some things. So like the Barrett thing, you have to have Barrett take you. You can go on a date at one point and there are all these girls in the party and you can take any of them. And the default is the main love interest. But there's this like hulking dude that you can also go with. And you have to like do this very specific stuff to get it right. And like, I was like, I'm going to do this, and I got it. And I was like, so like I tried it that way. I also beat Ultima Weapon without pressing not Ultima, Emerald. I beat Emerald Weapon without pressing a button. I went into battle. I put the controller down and I won the fight. So like that level of stuff, that level of stuff is like, I always give myself like a new challenge of something that I want to do. And like
speaking
no
of
level
weird, pointless skills that'll get you laid.
It's like,
that's honestly, that what you just said right there. If you said that to somebody,
that was like a turn on. That was like,
they would be like, all right, cool.
Where are we going?
Marry this woman. I'm gonna take this woman home. I'm gonna put a ring on her finger. She defeated Emerald Weapon. That's amazing.
It's not as hard as it sounds, actually. But it's just a matter of how
Modest
you do it.
Are you kidding me? Jeez.
So, like, that's what I do, and I re-engage, and I love it every time. Like, Final Fantasy VIII, hilariously, I really had a hard time with the first time because I went from 7, where it's just beat all the things, to 8, where it's like, no, actually, leveling's really bad for you, and you need to understand the junctioning system, which is totally different than the materia system, which is very straightforward. And I was completely lost. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't play Triple Triad. I didn't like it. Like, I couldn't experience the game in the right way. So as I go back to them, it's got enough familiarity that I feel comfortable, that I don't feel, and maybe it's an ADHD thing. I have enough nostalgia that I don't feel as much inertia when it comes to, like, nowadays when it's like, oh, this game came out. I'm like, oh, cool. Is there a Let's Play? Like, I don't want to play games anymore. I just want someone else to do it, and I will stare at it, and it's great. But yeah, so like there's just definitely an aspect of that I still, the familiarity is a boon. And there's no game that I've ever played and loved. Anything I can think of, like I used to be obsessed with Donkey Kong, and like I'm trying to think of like some of like the old SNES games, and like there are some games that I just never super loved, but nothing that I loved that I've come back to and been like, oh, thankfully. But there are some where it's like there are definitely cringy
moments
to them.
Yes. Yeah.
in one way or another. Usually it's just bad writing or bad translation or bad acting.
Huh.
Like, have you really like go back and like any Kojima game like is actual insanity. Like that man
break Kellen.
I'm sorry. That man is really good at concepts. That man is really good at like at least high level world building. But then first of all, somebody needs to stop him. We have people, every time somebody dies, they turn into a big giant and then they explode. And also, there's no rain. Every rain causes everything to die, which would actually just functionally kill an entire ecosystem in a day and a half. But no, we're just going to have that happen. And then also, there are gods. We're going to kind of talk on it. And then there's a guy named Die Hardman.
So much
There's a guy named Die Hardman. You cannot defend that, Kellen.
True.
Die Hardman.
I can defend Die Hardman.
Convention.
His name is
that
Die
I've
Hardman.
ever heard. So he's allowed to concept games, and then someone competent needs to take it over. Silent Hills looked awesome. Probably would have been shit. I bet it would have been shit if it had come out. And I'm glad that PT is all we have left because PT was clearly made not by Kojima. And so they got his wonderful world building. And I'm sorry, go back and play Metal Gear.
I will.
Can love bloom on the battlefield?
It's
what?
Beautiful. Do not tell me that moment is not beautiful. Come
Next
on.
week we're doing a let's play of
literally
Metal
being
Gear.
sniped right now. Like, can you be cool for 2 seconds? Character named Otakon, rude. First of all, personally offensive, and lame. No, we would call themselves Otakon. I could go on, but that man.
Okay.
That man.
For context for the audience, there is a Japanese developer named Hideo
This is
Kojima.
why we need to talk privately because
I love this. I love this. This is
But this
what we're going to
means
get
nothing
into.
to anyone watching this.
But that's why we're going to
I am
explain it.
triggered,
That's why
Carrie.
we're going to just explain
I'm
a
so
little bit.
triggered.
Little bit.
I'm extremely triggered.
Yes. So Hideo Kojima was he still is. He is prolific video. Is he prolific or is he like he's esoteric? What he is when he makes video games. He was very young when he started making video games.
Can he be both? He's both, right? Isn't prolific just like?
But I guess when I think of prolific, I think about someone who's making a game every year, and that's not what Kojima does, right?
No, yeah.
So what he
notorious? He's notorious.
He's notorious. He is infamous in terms of what he does, and what he wants to be is he wants to be a film director, right? He wants to make esoteric films.
He would do great,
and he would be incredible if he. But he also wants to make a video game, and he says to his audience members,
for reasons.
What if instead of you playing a video game, I play a video game for you, and then you hit the X button occasionally, and then we'll have a big robot.
You walk from place to place during the video game.
We will get into Death Stranding in a second, okay? I will defend Death Stranding. I love Death Stranding.
How can you?
I will explain it to you. I will explain how I can explain all of these games.
I can explain how I enjoy it in one word. Weed.
It's like, what if there were too many? They let him make a game that had too many plots and too many contrivances, and then they were like, for the gameplay, what if it was only side quests, but like fetch quests? Yes,
but I think that's
the best part about it is Norman Reedus.
I think that's the point. I think the point is he is in this sense, and not to get too esoteric about it, but he is deconstructing what a video game is supposed to be, right? Like he is.
The line for
this
RPG.
Is not Top Chef. You are not deconstructing shit.
Yes.
No.
If someone's going to do it, it's going to be him. He is a postmodern. He's deconstructing what a video game is supposed to be.
Why is this a 60-hour game then? We don't need 60 hours of being a delivery man. That is insanity.
I loved Death Stranding because of that. I loved Death Stranding in terms of the mechanics of like, oh, I gotta get from point A to point B. And again, it's not just like, oh, you're walking across Hyrule. It's like, okay, I know that there's the BTs are here. I know that I gotta cross the water here. I'm gonna try and min-max this. All of the video game parts of the game are still there. It's just the way in which you're sort of interacting with the world. I think it is so absolutely brilliant. But I understand when people complain about it. Not that I think, oh, you're wrong. I'm like, no, I hear all of the points. I completely agree with you. All the points you're making, I agree. I just happen to like all of the points you are talking about are bad. I think.
But
all
do you
the points-
like that the plot threads, like he sets up these fantastic ideas, and then they fizzle to nothing. Like, okay, the one chick, I literally don't remember her name. The chick,
We're talking about Mother. Who are we talking about?
The other one who's out there, the other delivery.
Oh
chick.
yeah. The other port.
She like her whole deal. She's like, oh. She covers her body and whatever, and then the reveal, it's because the guy who's working for this plot was so complicated. The plot is working for the whatever, and he made it run through Timefall. What did that do to her other than give her old lady body? Did it, I don't see her physically struggling at all. I don't see any physical indication. It's just, oh no, I got wrinkles now.
Yes.
Like it's the worst possible implementation of something that could have been cool. But also, Timefall serves no other purpose, except, I guess, to be an in-game thing that you have to worry about. But like, they could have, like, the suspension of disbelief is like, I'm trying here, but like, the world would not exist if Timefall existed. If Timefall was real.
Carolyn, just for the audience, so they understand.
Timefall is if it rained and the rain made everything age rapidly. Everywhere the rain went, there is no regular rain that I'm aware of anymore. It's only Timefall. This triggered at the same time a mysterious other thing triggered where as soon as people die, they functionally turn into nuclear bombs if you don't dispose of them by incinerating their full body within a specific time limit. These things happened at the same time, and it has to do with, I guess, a goddess whose job it was to end the world arbitrarily, and she didn't for a while, and then she was like, okay, fine. And that's all I got. And then there's like, she sets up all these contrivances to trick this guy to help another guy who's working for her. And it feels unnecessary. If you're literally a goddess, just blow up the world. This is dumb. Like, I'm struggling here.
I hear you. I hear the struggle. The struggle is very, very
Norman Reedus is great though. So like, if you just love being Norman Reedus and balancing a big backpack, because then your job throughout this whole game, it sounds like this fantastical whatever. No, your job is just to go around America as a delivery boy because it's so hard to deliver stuff. So the mechanics, they set up this huge, awesome thing. And are you supposed to help find a solution and do? No. Your job is just to help people survive. And as you do it systematically, every place you visit gets destroyed. Like the place you start out in gets destroyed by a dead body that doesn't get dealt with fast enough. And then also, by the way, there's a mechanic that lets you regenerate and resuscitate yourself from the dead. So like, what? Too many things. And then you're also dealing with flashbacks of you, flashbacks of your father, who's also still exists and invading your this is where there's so much plot, y'all. There's so much plot in Death Stranding. And then the gameplay, conversely, is
it's great. You get to shake a baby and it makes funny noises come out of your controller.
Like if the
I
baby
do like the baby.
The baby's wonderful. You can
She's very cute.
Yeah,
but
you get to make pee-pee bombs. Like there's lots of fun stuff, right?
But then the gameplay, it's like this fantastical, unbelievably over the top, in your head, ridiculous world built. And then it's like, we've got some cans of beans and we need you to go over that hill and get the beans.
That's every game ever.
Over that. That's not every game ever. That's not every game ever.
How is that not every game? Oh, the husband's here.
He's going to bed. He wants me to stop yelling. This is what happens when I drink. That's why I shouldn't do it.
Yell for another 20 minutes. It's fine.
Again, we have last episode. I thought was wonderful how Carol and I went on like a 30-minute rant, going from anime to Vanderpump Rules to.
I'll always come back to Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, absolutely! And then today we're like, let's talk about the politics of Broadway musicals, and now we're talking about esoteric Japanese video games. I love it.
I feel bad because every time I'm on, Brad is just like.
No, Brad loves it. Trust me.
Brad is the best case scenario for me. I don't have to talk as much. I get to just listen to chaos.
You get points for WoW. That counts.
Chat.
In fact, that's a level I can't possibly do. WoW is I played it for about a year, and again, as I mentioned, I've had my.
It's another game where you just go collect soup cans.
That's true.
They call them different things occasionally, but you're still just collecting soup cans.
But at least it's like you're helping out a guy locally, and you're But there are raids, like there are, and then like my boyfriend and friends were in there too. And no, the raids were dragons. Thank you. Like you can, I don't know. There was more going on. Like WoW was different because it's a Memorpica, and those are my struggle with those is that they continue when I turn them off. Yeah. I would like the world to stop existing. It's about me. Mm-hmm. So when I'm gone, I don't want anything to keep going. And that's kind of where I'm at. That was my struggle with World of Warcraft.
I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of the games that I was really wanted to be super into were the games where it felt like more a job than a game, where it was just like, oh, well, you know, if I'm going to be good at this, I need to like make this my priority.
Right? Yeah.
You know?
And that's not a level I want to be at.
No.
When it comes to video games.
I can't deal with that because it's either 100% or I can't give it the energy.
Yeah.
I can't afford to give it 100% these days, so it just doesn't.
And he's retired.
Yeah. That's how taxing kids are, ladies and gentlemen.
Maybe a few more years I'll get into
it. Before you move forward in that direction.
So I think I have the oldest child here. My child is going to turn 8 on Sunday.
Oh,
and then I have a 9-month-old. Sorry?
That's exciting. And wow, that's an age gap.
There's a bit of an age gap. Yes, a bit of an age gap. So the 8-year-old can play video games on his own. We got him a computer for his birthday, an early birthday present, and he's now playing Minecraft on a computer, and he feels like really super special because he's like using a mouse and keyboard, and he's starting to understand those sort of things. Like it is genuinely like I got a little verklempt, like my little boy is understanding what WADs means, right? It's like, oh, isn't this amazing? Like he's now starting to get this sort of stuff rather than having control. He sees
what this boys.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand that like when he gets older, video games will become his thing as opposed to our thing. Video games was my thing, and then it was our thing, and eventually it will be his thing, and he'll be like, no, I'm going to play my own games. I'm going to do this sort of stuff. But Caroline, you said your child is 4?
He'll be 5 in September.
And then Brad, your son just turned
6.
Just turned 6, right? Like, I feel like that was right around the age where he started getting into video games. But Brad, your son is very much into games, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll play just about anything. The only things I've had trouble with him with so far is like Paper Mario and things with just a lot of words. Not so much with the reading yet. So it needs a lot of assistance for that.
Yeah, we do.
But generally anything that explains itself, you know, without.
Oh, his newest... He was super into Bendy, of all fucking things. Sorry.
Bendy?
And the Ink Machine.
Oh, Bendy and the Ink Machine. Yes. This super
not great
game.
For a 4-year-old.
It's literally a horror game.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. He just found a bunch of like AMVs, I guess, about it. There's some bangers out there, shockingly. Our songs around Bendy. He found it on YouTube someday, and we have a Bendy plush, which is actually great to sleep with. Side note, like if you just want to hold, like he's perfect. Mm-hmm. So then he's obsessed with like Ink Bendy, and he definitely had problems sleeping. At first I was like, this is literally a horror game. It's kind of scary, you know, but now he loves it, especially now he's not scared of it at all. That got him into Cuphead because there's a lot of overlap between like the Cuphead and Bendy fandoms, I guess. And there are Cuphead extra levels. There's a Cuphead level that is a Bendy level, and they also made a Hello Neighbor level. So there's a lot of crossover, and there's a lot of crossover in like these music videos. Like I guess the fandoms just have a lot of crossover. So now you're like Cuphead, and then he kept being like, I want to play Cuphead, and I'm like, here's the thing about Cuphead.
It's tough.
Really hard.
Yeah.
And I hate platformers. Like, ugh. So I was like, this is on you, husband. Good luck, you know. And he's the one who's downloaded Cuphead. So they played. and now Bryce wants to, when we fight Bendy, it's like he'll take the Bendy plush and put like a blanket over its eyes, and he's like, he's Ink Bendy now. So now I got an Ink Bendy. I'm going to give him on Friday because I'm just sick of that, and that's like getting old. So now we'll have 2 Bendies, and then we have to kill him to defeat him.
Sure.
Using our finger guns.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intersectionality going on there. But as far as like playing games, yeah, I mean, he played there's like a Paw Patrol game that doesn't have any fail states, you know? So like those are good games. That's a platformer. And that was
my kid plays that and finds glitches in it because he's been watching like speed runs with glitches. So he'll find ways to break out of bounds and stuff and fall infinitely and things like that. And he keeps coming together. Come get! I found another way to get out of the world.
So cool.
That is awesome, Brad.
Bryce doesn't understand that when you jump, you have to keep pushing the direction that way to get, he'll go that way and jump, and then he falls, and he's like, oh, and I'm like, you gotta keep doing it, just a little bit more, and he doesn't quite get that yet. And then Rob made him a bunch of he did a Mario Maker thing and made him his own world. That's very simple, so that he's got all the different.
I did the same thing with Mario Maker, and now my son makes incredible levels on Mario Maker that I can't get through. What
are those ones from AGDQ called? The
Kaizo games?
Kaizo level?
Well, the problem is my son will be like, oh, this is like a Kaizo level. I'm like, oh, this is not a Kaizo level. This is not a fun level. Kaizo levels are possible. You can beat a Kaizo level. This is impossible.
This is impossible.
This is impossible.
Bad.
It's like I was like, I'm gonna see. I will play this level if you can beat the level. And he's like, well, I can't beat the level. I'm like, well, then I'm not gonna play it anymore. This
that doesn't count.
This doesn't count. You gotta play it.
Get him to submit it online and give you the code. So he has to beat it first.
You got to beat it first, and then I'll play it.
I like that. I like that. That's a good idea.
No, I think platformers are a really easy, fun way to get kids into games. I got one of the Nintendo Classics and the Super Nintendo Classics and modded them just to be able to do that, just to be able to have great, let's just play Mario. This is all it is. Let's just play this sort of thing and kind of have that sort of experience so he could kind of get into that. And the Switch is so easy, to allow kids to kind of get into video games in that very classic sort of Mario sort of way. So, and then he plays Mario Sunshine. And he's like, this game sucks. And I was like, it kind of does. It was not very well received at the time.
He watched a ton of Luigi's Mansion, but he watched stuff or watched Rob play it or something. He wasn't playing it himself, but he loves Luigi. It's great.
Luigi's Mansion's a great game. Amazing.
Which is funny because it feels like it's just Mario Sunshine, but the other brother and a different thing. But they're not quite.
But there's no jumping. But there's no jumping, which is great.
And it's great for 2 players.
Yeah,
when one of those players just can die and go back into the backpack and get back out. So it's nice and easy for a second player that maybe isn't so great at the game.
Yeah. So for the most part, when it comes to games, he's not so much into playing them as he is the lore around them, which is funny because that's me. that's me. I will again. Bendy was one where it's like, I'll watch this for sure. I'm not gonna play it. Get out of here. Survival horrors. I can't. I don't want to be. And maybe it's I literally it's too much for me. I freak out, and if I get paralyzed, I could barely play Ocarina of Time, anything that wasn't an RPG, a standard, a Final Fantasy style. Even then I would freak out. What happens? And it's I don't know what it is. I just get this paralysis where I'm incapable. With WoW, I was very bad at playing World of Warcraft. Any PvP situation, even if I knew the right thing to do, I would hit the wrong buttons. I would do. I don't know. I'm just not fighting games. I absolutely loathe. Not at all. I'm a lore whore. I want the story and I don't care about the rest of it. I want to see you explore it because I want to understand it from that perspective, but live through the game. But give me a let's play any day.
I like that. I like that a lot. I feel like I buy a lot of I used to buy a lot of content around video games that way of like, I just want like all the books about the lore, right? Like I used to play Destiny all the time and I just had like all the Destiny books to just sort of like get into all of that, the Grimoire and the rest of that sort of stuff, because that was much more interesting than the game itself.
I didn't think Destiny had that much around it. Like,
oh, it does. It's got a lot of stuff around
FPSs are usually pretty light on the lore. They kind of just want enough to be able to let you, like the only reason Halo has as much as it has is because there are 5 of them. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're just, but at some point
I think what they wanted to do is they had it's the Halo team who goes off and makes Destiny, and they're like, well, we want to be like WoW, so they brought in people who are just writing time. I mean, again, I've got 4 300-page books that are just lore around this, and the problem was it's like WoW is really great because all that lore is in the game. Destiny it was like none of that lore was in the game. It was all outside of the game. So it was like for you, Caroline, it's like, well, it's not going to be interesting because you have to like literally read a book to learn about this. But then after you read that book, you come back and you meet a character and you're like, well, I know who this character is.
No, see, here's what I do. This is very similar to Warhammer.
Yeah. Oh,
so with Warhammer, there is a channel that, so I don't know if y'all have this, but like my YouTube is signed up in certain rooms and Rob's YouTube is signed up in certain rooms.
Oh.
So in the main room, it's his YouTube, and in the bedroom and on the porch, it's mine because that's like my domain. Yeah. So when I was in the main room and I was just going through to see what all he's been looking at, like this channel came up that just all it does is like has videos where it just talks about like what's going on around 9th edition, like what changed, what's up with the what is the Horus Heresy, I don't know if any of this makes any sense to you, but like what is going on in the world of 40K, and the 40K is such an immense, so like it's obviously huge in history and on all this stuff, but they had individual ones where like who are the Tyranids, who are the Eldar, who are the whatever, what is the story of Necrons, like, and I was immediately like, yes, and I just I binged them for a while. And so I got a good chunk of it from that. And then one of the best times I had was we went to Paris one year, a couple years after Bryce was born. And one night we went to this one restaurant and spent like 3 hours just sitting there drinking cider and like kind of casually eating dinner. And he just I was just like, tell me, so what does this mean? Like, and who is this? And we just talked and he just gave me this
romantic. I got goosebumps. I was like, ooh, Paris and 40K. Ooh.
I know. It was amazing. And it was like one of my favorite memories from that whole trip. I had such a great time. Like we tend to be very, I mean, it's different, a little bit different now, but like we were very New York. We were very like, get in, whatever, get out. Like everything's very fast. So to like actually be leisurely and to talk about that in a way that was like understandable to me and really interesting to me was just so cool, So that was one of the best experiences I think I had, like relating to that. And I've done stuff like that with other people relating to other stuff. So like Warhammer was a big one. When Warhammer 3 came out, before World of Warcraft came out.
Sure.
Someone I was seeing at that time, we had several things like that where I just kind of got like the whole like Arthas and like what's all going on. I don't remember a lot of it, but like that's awesome to me. Like the fantasy stuff is less interesting. Something about Warhammer being like this horrific future world is also fascinating, even though it's terrible for all humans all the time. But yeah, fantasy is a little tricky for me. But yeah, like when I learned like the plot of Halo, like I'm like, no, tell me what's going on around Halo. Like that's interesting. Like I watched my husband play Mass Effect. That was interesting. I find I just, like I said, lore, give me the story and the rest you can keep. I don't care unless it's helping me experience the story. So yeah, naturally, like the biggest betrayal I think I've experienced in my entire life was playing Final Fantasy 15 and getting immersed and fully enjoying it. And then there's a secret dungeon that you can go into that you can only get into if you turn your car into a plane and successfully land it. And then you get in that dungeon and it's a platformer. Are you fucking serious? You serious? I was so mad. You do not understand. I died so many times down there. Just falling to my death. I made my husband do it. I couldn't. No, I was so mad.
Final Fantasy 15 was not as bad as I thought it was.
One of my favorites.
I haven't played it.
It's worth it, Brad. It's honestly really, really worth it. So.
Yeah, it's a weird. It goes the opposite direction of what most Final Fantasies do. No. Most Final Fantasies, you start out in a very narrow, very linear path, and then it opens up as time goes on. Unless it's in Final Fantasy 13, which doesn't ever, it stays linear and terrible. But 15 does the opposite. It starts out with like you're in this open world and you're kind of trying to figure it out. And then as you go forward, your world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is, I think, for a lot of people that threw them off. For me, that made a lot of sense for the journey that this character is on, this main character that you play. His journey is one of inevitability and, acceptance of what your future and ultimate, in this case, destiny is. And so as time goes on and as he moves forward, things close in around him and he loses touch with those he has to cut off those who are around him. And, not fully like the whole message is very much about the family of choice and the people around you and valuing those friendships and what they mean to your life and your journey. But a lot of people got really thrown off by that the whole chapter 13 anger. So like when you get to this one chapter, a lot of people were really angry with it. And I remember thinking, I don't really get why, but I understand why they were upset. Yeah. It just goes a completely different direction than most games go. But I thought it made a ton of sense.
You're bought in from the beginning. And if someone is not, and they're waiting for their game to show up at that point, then yeah, they're off the game for the rest of the time.
It's literally the opposite. Like you start out with, you can go anywhere. You're gate kept only by literally in some cases they literally block off roads, but most of the time you're just gate kept by, if I go that way, I will be murdered by that thing. It's very much MMO like in the beginning. And there are some silly things in it. I mean, there is a time traveling dog and that's weird. But it's just a plot contrivance to allow you to go back to the big continent if you want to. It's fine. We can let it go.
Oh, so you're fine with the time traveling dog, but if it rains and that makes time do something different, that's ridiculous.
Don't start this fight again.
You get one thing. You get one thing. Okay? And the rain timefall doesn't do anything. The timefall adds nothing of value to the actual game. No, we're doing this again. The timefall adds nothing.
Your husband's going to be so mad at us because we got you yelling again. I feel so bad.
Timefall adds nothing. It
does.
Thank you for reminding me.
Stupid timefalls.
What does it add? Then there's a little bit of a plot involvement in terms of the gameplay. Sorry, I talked through this whole session. It's
so good. It's so good.
It's like a little bit of a plot involvement in terms of you have to hide if there's timefall. But if there's timefall, it's gonna desecrate anything you're hiding in, so it's gonna fucking kill you anyway. It's badly implemented. It's stupid and unnecessary. They could have included anything else and it would have been more meaningful. They could have done something valuable with what they already had from the whole, people turn into giant nuclear bombs when they die. That they could have done enough with that, and the fact that Norman Reedus can come back to life at will. That's a lot.
Because he's been to the beach, right? He's been to the beach.
The beach, that's a thing we needed. We needed the beach. It couldn't just be that a god got mad. It's fucking beach. Why is it a beach? Is this Kingdom Hearts? What am I missing?
I was going to say, the fact that you are I know that you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, and the fact that you're criticizing Death Stranding is fucking hilarious.
Let me be so clear. Yeah. I like some of the aesthetics of Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
Keyblades are baller.
Yes.
Cool looking. And I thought that would look really cool. My husband bought a metal Keyblade because he thought it would look cool. Amazon sent him 2. And I was like, I know what we want to do. We're going to mount these. It's going to look cool as heck.
Sure, of course.
But the plot? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Not at all. Have you seen a good enough summary of Kingdom Hearts?
Yes, it's very good.
That is I reckon.
It's real good, Brad.
Brad, watch it. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's like a guy dumbing down and streamlining a 7-hour conversation where someone he knows tries to explain the plot of Kingdom Hearts prior to Kingdom Hearts 3, which got even worse. Kingdom Hearts 3 got even worse. So no, Kingdom Hearts is not good. I don't like it.
I'm glad to hear that, because people who defend Kingdom Hearts, I'm like, you're your own brand.
Wait, maybe that's the game. When I go back and when I first played Kingdom Hearts, I loved it. I loved it because for a number of reasons, but I love the experience of it. Very specifically, Traverse Town was like,
Sure.
I love Traverse Town. It's just so homey and nice. The fact that it's always nighttime there for some reason, I super love. The fact that when you come back, there was always new things to discover as you got new stuff. And it was like your centralized home throughout the whole thing. And, you know, you'd always get a new ability and you could figure out like, oh, I know I'm going to be able to do something cool in Traverse Town, and it gets bigger and stuff. And I still love that, but it's hard for me to get past now. When I go back, I'm just like, this is so fucking dumb. Like, I play this game and I'm just like, where are their parents? They literally have parents. They're just like, at first I was like, do they live on this island? And I was like, no, they take a raft and they go to the island in boats or something. And then that makes the whole beginning part make no sense, where they're like, we need to build a raft. Why? You have boats. You have literal boats. Why do you need a raft? Kyrie, I hate you. I hate Kyrie. She's a terrible character. So that's my game.
I don't think we can let this stream end with this level of hatred.
I apologize.
No,
I'm not
it's
a fan
not
of
your
Kyrie.
fault at all.
It's not your
That's
fault.
the game.
But I
Not
do
your fault.
want
Kingdom
to
Hearts
play
is
a
the game.
ridiculous video as a cleanser.
Yes.
for
Let's
people,
do it.
just
The
to
palate
end
cleanser. I love
the
it.
show. So I'm going to share the screen. You guys may have seen this at some point. It's not new by any means, but get this going. There we go.
Is he about to yell at me? Is this the motivation?
There's no one around and your phone is dead. Out of the corner of your eye, you spot him. He's following you, about 30 feet back.
That's terrifying.
Pours and breaks into a sprint. He's gaining on you.
Shia LaBeouf.
You're looking for your car, but you're all turned around. He's almost upon you now, and you can see there's blood on his face. My God, there's blood everywhere!
Running for your life from Shia LaBeouf. He's brandishing a knife. It's Shia LaBeouf. Lurking in the shadows. Hollywood superstar Shia LaBeouf. Living in the woods. Shia LaBeouf. Killing for sport. Shia LaBeouf. Eating all the bodies. Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Now it's dark, and you seem to have lost him. But you're hopelessly lost yourself. Stranded with a murderer. You creep silently through the underbrush. Aha! In the distance, a small cottage with a light on. Hope. You move stealthily toward it, but your leg! Ah! It's caught in a bear trap!
Living to the cottage. Now you're on the doorstep. Sitting inside. Shia LaBeouf. Sharpening an axe. Shia LaBeouf. But he doesn't hear you enter. Shia LaBeouf. You're sneaking up behind him. Strangling superstar Shia LaBeouf. Fighting for your life with Shia LaBeouf. Wrestling a knife with Shia LaBeouf. Stab it in his kidney. Safe at last from Shia LaBeouf.
You limp into the dark woods, blood oozing from your stump leg. You've beaten Shia LaBeouf.
Wait, he isn't dead. Shy surprise. There's a gun to your head and death in his eyes. But you can do jujitsu with body slam superstar Shia LaBeouf. Legendary fight with Shia LaBeouf. Come on Tuesday night with Shia LaBeouf.
It's so involved.
But blood is raining fast from your stump leg. He's dodging every swipe. He parries to the left. You counter to the right. You catch him in the neck. You're chopping off his head now. Just decapitated Shia LaBeouf.
His head topples to the floor, expressionless. You fall to your knees and catch your breath. You're finally safe from Shia LaBeouf.
Why? Why is this a thing? Why? Whose final art project was this? Is it Chuck? I swear to God.
It has to be.
It has to be. Ah! Did he pay for it? I don't.
Of course he did.
I can never tell if this dude is like the worst or if he's an icon. I'll be honest.
Could be both.
Maybe be both.
Yeah, the worst icon.
So anyway, that's a thing that exists in the world.
Right,
That's
I'd never
amazing.
seen it
And I need to
before.
share it with everyone who has.
I'm gonna
not
put that
seen
on my
it
alt
before,
TikTok
so
account because
Yes.
that's quotable for sure. Sound has potential.
Caroline,
I'm very happy that neither of you had clearly seen
I'm
that.
no. I knew. I was like, the moment it turned, I was like, oh, that's where the gift comes from. I knew that it came from something.
I knew the clapping. I was like, I've seen this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Caroline, thank you again, as always, for coming. These conversations are so fun. I know Brad enjoys them. I love them. Though we might
I'm
have
sorry
different...
for dominating again. I
no,
kind of
Caroline.
have it. And when I drink, especially. It's not grape juice.
It's okay.
Carrie, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm pretty high. It's awesome. We're
I'm
all
350 milligrams of.
Yes, that was so funny last.
I'm gonna make a TikTok about
that. So good. Brad, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you guys for having me.
For anybody who's still here, thank you for watching. And
no one is watching, Kelly.
No one's watching. That's
no, not at all. Carrie gave up on us.
It's been no one for.
Is it Carrie or Kari?
It's Carrie.
It's Carrie. Okay,
it's Carrie.
I think she gave up on us, and that's fine.
We were talking about this training. She was like, "I don't know this. I don't know."
Yeah, I tend to.
It's not you. No. You do not. No, Caroline. It is not you. It is not you. Okay.
All right.
Is your little one? Yes.
You can answer me that question after we stop recording.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Bye.